Power in the global system is not disappearing. It is being redistributed. Old assumptions about stability, alliances, and dominance are quietly collapsing. What we're witnessing is not chaos, it's a structural reset. And if you understand what's actually happening, if you can see the architecture beneath the headlines, you'll understand why the investment landscape for the next decade looks nothing like the last 4 decades. I'm Raoul Pal. I spent 20 years at Goldman Sachs and GLG Partners watching capital flows and geopolitical shifts before they hit the mainstream. And what I'm seeing right now is the most significant restructuring of global power since 1991. The game is being reset, and most people have no idea the rules are changing. Subscribe to this channel. The people who understand what's unfolding are positioning very differently than those who don't. Part 1. The Old Game: How We Got Here. Let me take you back to 1991. The Soviet Union collapses. America becomes the only game in town. No one can challenge American supremacy. And so America creates what they called the New World Order, a system based on global trade, with the US dollar at its center. But here's what most people don't understand. Because the United States controls the dollar, it controls something far more powerful: pricing. Pricing means Americans can essentially decide the value of everything. What America did was create a price hierarchy for the entire world. Level what it represents would as it bottom reserocious, Africa, South America Madlamatic Inchamanquich. This hierarchy created a global division of labor. Everyone had their role, everyone made money, and for decades it worked. America transferred its manufacturing to China because it was cheaper. America kept finance, which is essentially the creation of money for the purpose of creating more money. But here's the problem. When you focus entirely on finance, you become a speculative economy. You focus on gambling, on leverage, on paper claims that multiply faster than the real economy can support. And that leads directly to 2008, the great financial crisis, when the American economy collapsed and nearly took the entire world with it. Part 2. China's rise and the fracture. Here's what most people don't know about 2008. All the central banks from around the world came together at the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, the shadow body where global economic policy is actually coordinated, and they decided the only way to save the world economy was for China to spend money. Why do you think China built all those skyscrapers? All those airports? All those high-speed railways? Because China, to save the global economy, invested massively in infrastructure, Belt and Road, domestic stimulus, trillions in spending, and it worked. China saved the global economy. But here's where the fracture begins. After China did this, China developed significant debt, but they also developed something else: leverage. China basically said to the world, listen, we saved the global economy. We deserve a seat at the table. We deserve to be equals to America. We're going to sell Huawei phones around the world. We're going to compete for global dominance. And America said, no. That's what Donald Trump represented in 2016. The US-China trade war, sanctions, technology restrictions, Huawei bans. America was saying, you save the system, but you don't get to restructure it. The hierarchy stays, you stay in your lane. But China refused to stay in its lane. Part 3. Russia and the Resource Rebellion. Then 2022 happens. Russia invades Ukraine, and this is where most Western analysis completely misses the point. Russia is saying something fundamental: this price hierarchy. Screw this. Here's why resources matter more than people realize. You can't manufacture without resources. You can't have knowledge without resources. You can't have finance without resources. Resources are the foundation of everything. Russia and Ukraine together control roughly 1/3 of the world's grain exports. Africa and the Middle East depend on Russian and Ukrainian grain to avoid famine. When Russia moves on Ukraine, they're not just grabbing territory, they're repositioning in the resource layer, the foundation of the entire system. And now the entire hierarchy is in jeopardy. Part 4. The Everything Code and the Reset. Let me connect this to my Everything Code framework. Global liquidity is the master variable, but liquidity flows through channels, and those channels are controlled by whoever controls the monetary plumbing. For 30 years, America controlled the plumbing: the dollar, SWIFT, the treasury market, the pricing of everything. What's happening now is a parallel plumbing system is being built. BRICS is creating alternative settlement systems. China is building the petro-yuan and digital yuan infrastructure. Russia has proven you can survive being cut off from SWIFT. Central banks are accumulating gold as a neutral settlement asset. The old system isn't dying tomorrow, but a competing system is being born. And here's what matters for your money. When the global system fragments, when multiple currencies compete, when pricing power is contested, the volatility doesn't just affect geopolitics, it affects every asset you own. Part 5. The New Game. What's actually happening. Let me be precise about what this reset actually looks like. Shift number 1. From unipolar to multipolar. For 30 years, America ran the table. One superpower, one reserve currency, one set of rules. That era is ending. We're moving to a world with multiple power centers, each with their own spheres of influence, their own trade networks, their own settlement systems. This doesn't mean America collapses. It means America's premium erodes, the ability to borrow cheaply because everyone needs dollars, the ability to sanction anyone because everyone uses SWIFT, the ability to set prices because everyone trades in dollar terms. That premium is shrinking. And as it shrinks, the math changes. Shift number 2, from globalization to regionalization. The old model was simple. Manufacture wherever it's cheapest. Ship everywhere. Optimize for efficiency. The new model is different. Manufacture where it's secure. Build supply chain resilience. Optimize for control. This is why you're seeing reshoring of semiconductor production, friend-shoring of critical supply chains resource. Nationalism in Africa and South America, energy independence becoming a security priority. Efficiency is being sacrificed for resilience, and that's inflationary. It means higher costs. It means the deflationary tailwind of the last 30 years is becoming an inflationary headwind. Shift number 3, from paper to hard assets. When the global system was stable, when America ran the game, you could hold paper promises and trust. They'd be honored. Treasury bonds, dollar deposits, financial claims. But when the system fragments, when multiple powers compete, when sanctions can freeze your assets overnight, paper promises become less trustworthy. That's why central banks are buying gold at record pace. 863 tons in 2025 alone. That's why China moved $1.2 trillion out of US treasuries. That's why Bitcoin, a neutral, non-sovereign, mathematically scarce asset, is increasingly attractive to institutions looking for assets outside any single government's control. The shift from paper to hard assets isn't a prediction. It's already happening. Part 6. The 11% hurdle rate in a fragmenting world. This connects directly to my 11% hurdle rate framework. You need 11% annual returns just to maintain purchasing power, 8% currency debasement plus 3% inflation. But in a fragmenting world, that hurdle rate goes higher. Here's why. Fragmentation is inflationary. When supply chains are rebuilt for security instead of efficiency, costs rise. When energy becomes a weapon, prices spike. When trade wars escalate, tariffs add costs. Fragmentation increases volatility. When multiple powers compete, crises happen more often. When sanctions can hit overnight, risk premiums expand. When the rules keep changing, uncertainty rises. Fragmentation accelerates debasement. Every major power is printing money to fund defense, infrastructure, and reshoring. The US, China, Europe, everyone is debasing. The 11% hurdle rate becomes the 15% or 20% hurdle rate in a multipolar world with persistent inflation and elevated volatility. Your savings need to work harder just to stand still. Part 7. The 3 scenarios. Let me walk you through the 3 most likely paths for this reset. Scenario 1. Managed competition. The major powers find a new equilibrium. Trade continues, just with more friction. The dollar remains dominant but shares space with alternatives. Tensions stay high but don't escalate to direct conflict. Even in this best case, inflation runs higher than the old era. Volatility is elevated. Hard assets outperform paper claims. The 11% hurdle rate remains or increases. Result: gold performs, Bitcoin performs, commodities and real assets perform. Scenario 2. Accelerating fragmentation. Trade wars escalate, technology decoupling accelerates, regional blocs harden, energy and food become weapons, multiple hotspots flare simultaneously. In this scenario, inflation spikes, supply chains break, safe haven flows intensify, currencies devalue competitively. Result: gold surges, Bitcoin becomes critical as neutral settlement, commodity producers outperform. Scenario 3. New Bretton Woods. The current system breaks down enough that a new monetary architecture is negotiated. Could involve gold, could involve SDRs, could involve a basket of currencies or digital assets. In this scenario, whoever holds hard assets during the transition is protected. Whoever holds paper claims on the old system gets repriced. Result: gold is revalued dramatically. Bitcoin potentially included in new architecture. Real assets win. All 3 scenarios lead to the same investment conclusion. Hard assets outperform paper claims when the global game is being reset. Part 8. The DFU framework. Here's how to navigate this reset. DFU: don't F this up. Step 1. Understand the game is changing. Stop assuming the next 10 years look like the last 40 years. They won't. The rules that made 60/40ths portfolios work: low inflation, dollar dominance, globalization tailwinds, those rules are changing. You need to update your mental model. Step 2. Build hard asset exposure, assets that exist outside any single government's control. Gold, the 5000-year neutral settlement asset now being accumulated by central banks at record pace. Bitcoin, the digital neutral asset with mathematical scarcity. No government can print more commodities, the foundation layer that everything else depends on. Productive real assets, land, infrastructure, essential businesses. Step 3. Reduce paper concentration. Calculate how much of your net worth is denominated in a single currency's paper claims. If you're 90% in dollar-denominated bonds, deposits, and financial assets, you're making a massive bet on dollar dominance continuing exactly as it has. Diversification now means asset type diversification, not just geographic diversification. Step 4. Think in decades. This reset doesn't happen in months. It happens over years and decades, but the repricing of assets often happens in weeks and months when sentiment shifts. Position now. Be patient. Let the reset unfold. Let me leave you with this. The world you grew up in, the unipolar world where America set the rules, the dollar was king, and everyone followed the same playbook. That world is ending, not collapsing, transitioning. China saved the system and now demands a seat at the table. Russia is challenging the resource hierarchy. BRICS is building alternative infrastructure. Central banks are accumulating gold. Everyone is debasing their currency. The game is being reset. You can ignore this and hope the old rules keep working. You can pretend the last 40 years will repeat. Or you can see what's actually happening and position accordingly. The pattern is clear. Power is redistributing, trade is fragmenting, paper is losing trust, hard assets are gaining. The people who understand this reset are accumulating gold, Bitcoin, commodities, and real assets. They're reducing exposure to paper claims on a system that's being restructured. The people who don't understand will wake up one day and realize the rules changed and they're holding the wrong assets. The magic is out there, but you have to see the reset to navigate it. Don't F this up.